Listen, not with your ears, but with that quiet place inside you that still believes. Even after everything, there is a reason you've always felt different. Not better, not superior, just out of place, like this world speaks a language your soul understands, but never fully learned to respond to. You've tried to blend in, you've tried to become smaller, quieter, easier to accept. You've worn versions of yourself that made other people comfortable, even when they made you feel invisible. And still, something inside you refused to disappear. That something is not random. It is not personality. It is not coincidence. It is the mark of being called. You were never created to live a borrowed life. You were not designed to copy paths that don't resonate with your spirit. That deep restlessness you feel is not dissatisfaction. It is remembrance, a memory your soul carries from before the world taught you fear. There were moments you questioned yourself. Moments you thought, why do I feel so much? Why do I see things others ignore? Why do I care when it would be easier not to? You thought it made you weak. But sensitivity is not weakness. It is perception. You were built with a heart that detects truth even when it's disguised. That's why you've been hurt more than once. That's why betrayal cut deeper. That's why disappointment stayed longer. Not because you are fragile, but because you are aware. And awareness is expensive. God does not give deep hearts to shallow destinies. You've walked through seasons where nothing made sense. You did the right things, but the results didn't come. You stayed honest, but honesty didn't reward you. You stayed loyal, but loyalty wasn't returned. And slowly, silently, you started wondering if you were forgotten. But listen carefully now. God does not forget people He is still preparing. Some delays are not denials. Some silences are not absences. Some endings are not losses. They are transitions. You were never behind. You were being positioned. While others were collecting applause, you were collecting lessons while others were building image. You were building depth while others were chasing attention. You were learning alignment. And alignment always comes before elevation. You don't see it yet, but your life has been shaped in layers. Every disappointment carved space. Every heartbreak removed illusion. Every unanswered prayer redirected you away from something that would have limited you later. God doesn't always block roads with walls. Sometimes He blocks them with confusion. So you don't go somewhere that looks good but ends small. There were people you lost that you still think about. You replay conversations in your mind. You imagine different endings. You wonder if things could have worked out if you tried harder, spoke softer, gave more. But some connections are not meant to last. They are meant to reveal. Not everyone who enters your life comes to stay. Some come to expose what you need to heal. Some come to mirror what you need to release. Some come to show you how much you've grown. And when they leave, it's not rejection. It's redirection. You've spent too long blaming yourself for endings God orchestrated. You thought you failed, but God was protecting you from becoming someone you were never meant to be. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be aligned with truth. And truth always feels lonely before it feels powerful. There were nights you lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and emptiness. Like you knew something was coming, but couldn't name it, like your soul was stretching. But your life hadn't caught up yet. That feeling is not anxiety. It's anticipation. Your spirit already knows what your mind is still catching up to. God has been removing layers from you. Old identities, old habits, old attachments. Not to make you empty, but to make you available. You can't receive what's next while holding what's over. And yes, it hurt. Yes, it was uncomfortable. Yes, it felt unfair. But growth always feels like loss at first. Because you don't just lose people. You lose versions of yourself. The one who needed validation. The one who tolerated disrespect. The one who stayed in places that drained you. The one who confused attachment with love. God has been quietly retiring those versions. Not to punish you, but to free you. You are entering a season where your life will no longer be built on survival. It will be built on resonance. Things will start to feel lighter. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop fighting what no longer fits. You will stop forcing connections. Stop explaining your worth. Stop shrinking your dreams. And for the first time, you will realize you were never behind. You were being refined. And now this is where everything shifts. Not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. Because the biggest changes in life never arrive with noise. They arrive with clarity. One day you will wake up and realize you are no longer chasing, no longer forcing, no longer proving. You will still have dreams, but they won't feel heavy anymore. They won't feel desperate. They will feel aligned. You will notice that your energy has changed. The way you speak, the way you choose, the way you walk away from what doesn't feel right. You will stop explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. You will stop negotiating with situations that drain your soul. You will stop betraying your own intuition just to keep peace with others. And that's when you'll realize you didn't lose your old life. You outgrew it. God was not taking things away from you. He was making space. Space for peace instead of pressure. Space for depth instead of noise. Space for truth instead of performance. You are being prepared for a life that doesn't require pretending. There will come a moment where you finally understand why things had to fall apart. Why some doors stayed closed. Why some people walked away. Why some prayers were not answered the way you wanted. Not because God was ignoring you, but because He was protecting a version of you that didn't exist yet. The version of you who no longer settles. The version of you who no longer begs. The version of you who no longer fears being alone. You were never meant to be surrounded by many. You were meant to be surrounded by what is real. And real always comes after removal. You will start to feel something new inside you. A calm that doesn't depend on circumstances. A confidence that doesn't need validation. A peace that doesn't disappear when life gets uncertain. Not because life becomes perfect, but because you become grounded. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you start asking, what is this teaching me? That is the moment you step into wisdom. God does not rush people into their purpose. He roots them first, because anything built too early collapses later. And anything built on ego breaks under pressure. But what God builds in silence lasts. You are being trained in the unseen, in patience, in self-awareness, in emotional strength, in spiritual depth. Things no one applauds, things no one notices, things that don't look impressive on the outside. But those are the exact qualities that sustain destiny. That's why your journey felt lonely. That's why you had to learn things the hard way. That's why you felt misunderstood even by people who loved you. You were being shaped differently, not for attention, but for impact, not for popularity, but for purpose. One day people will see you and say, "You're so calm, you're so grounded, you're so strong," and they won't know how many nights you cried alone, how many times you doubted yourself, how many seasons you felt invisible. They won't know how many versions of you had to die for this one to exist. But God knows. God saw every tear you never explained, every prayer you couldn't put into words, every moment you stayed kind when it would have been easier to become cold. And He didn't waste any of it. Nothing you went through was random. Nothing you survived was pointless. Nothing you lost was for nothing. It all became you. Your empathy, your strength, your discernment, your depth, your resilience. You are not here by accident. You are not still standing by luck. You are not becoming who you are by chance. This is design, divine design. You were built for a life that feels meaningful, not just busy. For relationships that feel safe, not just exciting. For work that feels aligned, not just impressive. For peace that feels natural, not forced. And the most beautiful part, you no longer need to rush, because what is meant for you will recognize you. You will not have to chase doors. They will open. You will not have to beg for space. You will be welcomed. You will not have to prove your worth. It will be felt. And when that happens, you will look back at this version of yourself, the one who was confused, tired, doubting, healing. And you will feel grateful. Grateful that you didn't give up. Grateful that you stayed soft in a hard world. Grateful that you kept believing even when you had no evidence. Because this is the moment your real life begins. Not the life of survival. Not the life of comparison. Not the life of seeking approval, but the life of alignment, of peace, of truth, of purpose. You are no longer becoming. You are arriving. And God is not done with you. He is just getting started.